Because at the end of the day, we all have problems. We all deal with things. But it costs nothing to be human to someone, Whatever you do, it feels great. And you'll notice the positivity will start being contagious.
And welcome everyone to another wonderful episode of Humanity 2.0 podcast. Today we have an extremely special guest rolling out the red carpet for the host and the curator of Pete versus Anxiety. Pete, that is the coolest title for a podcast, but tell everyone about you because I could never do it justice.
All right, guys, I'm Pete from Pete versus Anxiety, the mental health podcast, breaking the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. It's been a journey from day one from this thing started. I started as just an idea. I ended up getting a network deal right afterwards. And then ever since then it exploded. Then Vanessa and I crossed paths. And then now I'm here right now. And guys, it's been nothing but great. Like we've had nothing but great episodes all week. We had one the other day where it was just like this woman's story was so powerful that there was a guy in the UK that actually asked her if she wanted to do on the radio show to talk to the ladies that are over there. And it was just like, I told her, I'm like, this is what happens. Like your story is going to be heard by somebody. Somebody's going to hear this. And that's it. And there you go. It was right there. Not even halfway through the episode of us recording, he was in the comments literally saying, hey, I'd like to invite you to come talk to some of the young ladies here in the UK, and tell your story. And I was like, yeah, there you go. I told you.
Mental health is one of my favorite subjects. And that sounds odd off the bat, but it is because it's so important. And there are so many facets of it that we don't yet explore, but that is coming up. The conversation is more open and free. And I think that it's giving way to so many more meaningful conversations and a lot of impact. Like you just said, one person has a huge impact on so many. So how does that feel for you to know that on the daily, you're part of the catalyst that is pushing forward that conversation and making it possible for a lot of people to be impacted by complete strangers?
It feels amazing. Like I said, if I looked at where I am now versus where I started this thing, people come up to me and say, Pete, I love what you're doing. And all I'm doing is giving people a space to talk about these things because it's not talked about enough. I mean, people are having the conversation, but are we really having a conversation? Because you see a lot of these celebrities talking about it. That's great. Okay. But what about the little guys, the people that support these people and the things they deal with on a daily basis? Who are they? And who are these different people? And it's a great thing with the show is that I bring on different people just to highlight them.
You just take a moment and think about it. Can you pinpoint something someone said that just totally threw you off your axis? You were not expecting it, but impacted you so hard.
I got one for you. Beginning of the year, there's a gentleman by the name of Brian DeCasio that was on my show. He told us that morning, 30 minutes into the interview, that he had thought about committing suicide that morning. He had the gun in his hand sitting at the edge of the bed. Now, this is going on live. And I'm freaking out mentally going, oh no, what do I do? And Brian just started talking about it. He's like, hey, Pete, I got to tell you something. I've been thinking about it. And he just starts edging into it. And then he starts talking about it. Then he loops away, comes back to it, and continues to talk about it some more. And then afterwards, he seemed like he felt a lot better getting it off his chest. But that was the moment of the year right there. I was like, holy crap, But when it comes with this space, you got to be ready for those kind of things because these are the conversations people don't want to have. Suicide comes up, man. You'd be amazed how many people stray away and don't even want to listen. And all you got to do is listen to them. That's it. Like honestly, if you feel like your friend is going to do something or you feel that they're at that point, recommend they call 9. Dial that number. There'll be somebody on the other that can help them, but at least listen, hear them out. Because maybe that's all they want to do is be heard. Like, hey, listen, I got these thoughts. I'm feeling invalidated, and things like that. And maybe that's all they need you to do is just hear them and feel like they're being validated, like you're listening to what they're saying. And when you listen, make sure you actually listen. Don't half listen. Listen and engage. Okay, I understand. Let them know you're paying attention because it is going to mean a lot to that person. And for all you know, you could have just saved someone's life, not even realizing by just taking 5 minutes to listen to what they have to say.
A lot of people wonder, like, well, what could I do? I'm just a person, or I don't have any mental health training, but you hit it right on the head. Just listen, just be there and actively listen. It makes the world of difference for someone that's suffering or someone that, may be kind of gravitating toward that dark place. And maybe they don't even know it because sometimes you don't even know when you're like in the, depths of a huge depression, but, it manifests in different ways for people. So really listening to all of your loved ones, all of your friends, or even someone that you just come across, but something doesn't seem right follow it.
Exactly.
Listen further and follow it. You mentioned 988. 988 is a big deal. That's not widely talked about as well. I actually heard it brought up this last week.
Mhm.
Can you tell everyone more about 988?
988, it's the suicide prevention hotline. People that are on the other end are trained to handle these things. So if you feel like the situation is getting out of hand and you really think your friend or loved one is going to attempt these things, or heck, even a random stranger, I've had random people message me talking about, hey, I'm thinking about killing myself. And I'm like, I listen to what they're saying, and you got to make that split decision. If you feel like it's getting out of hand and it's something you're really concerned, suggest them. Just say, hey, listen, there's this number you can call, 988. Call and talk to them. They're trained to handle these things. They can handle it better than I can. I don't have a problem listening, but I'm very concerned about you, and I feel like you may need to talk to someone else that can help you. And 988, that's what they're trained for. That's the greatest thing ever. If they can text that number, they call that number, and it used to be a 1-800 number. Then they changed it to make it less because they like, well, somebody ain't gonna want to dial on numbers. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. 988's three numbers, and you're already on your way to help.
Do you recall a time where you had to ask for help, whether it was calling someone or talking to someone, but you found it within yourself to ask someone?
I've had to ask for help several times, and it's more of a pride thing. I've been on the edge before. I had a friend that knew something was wrong, and I told her, hey, man, I need help because I'm on this edge, teetering, looking over the edge. And this conversation was visited during one of the interviews I did with a woman named Stephanie Aycock. Me and her were talking about it, and she basically described it the same way I was looking at it. It's like you're looking over the cliff, like you're deciding at that moment whether or not you're about to teeter-totter off the edge. And I decided to call a friend and say, hey, listen, I need some help, man. I said, this is what I'm thinking. And it was so great because he responded with, okay, man, what's up? Talk to me. And he's like, all right, yeah, and he was listening the whole time, engaging the conversation, letting me just completely talk crazy to him, and say these like wild things that I was thinking, how I don't feel like I'm being validated, I'm not heard. And at the time, I was dealing with a lot of things going on. My ex and I split up, and I was in a really bad relationship. She was narcissistic, and she was gaslighting me and things like that. All these things that you hear people throw around, this was actually happening. This isn't just, hey, I'm crying wolf. It was literally what happened. It's hard. Like, it's the hardest thing to do when you have to ask for help. Like, it takes away your power because you feel like you're so powerless that, oh, I have to go ask somebody else for help. But at the same time, it's okay to not be all right, guys. If you need help, ask somebody. I mean, you 9 times out of 10, you'll find out that those people are there to listen to you. But there are those situations, you have family members. Like, if you tell them, hey, listen, I'm thinking about killing myself, they freak out because they don't know how to handle the situation. And that's where Pete versus anxiety comes in, is that I'm trying to educate people along the way that it's okay to talk about these things. Like, you can talk to other people about it and not make the conversation really weird and make people feel different. I mean, yes, it's serious. Obviously, suicide is a very serious deal. People talk about it. Some people succeed doing it. Unfortunately, the numbers are crazy if you really look at them. But it's like, it's insane that you feel like you can't call your own family members and say, hey, mom, dad, I have a problem, because you're not sure what they're going to react. And that a lot of times that's what they'll say. And so people I've talked to about it said they're afraid that nobody will listen to them. They don't feel validated. They feel like they're not being noticed. And like, what I always tell people, it's always nice, kind to be done, buddy. It doesn't cost anything to be kind to somebody. Just
Mhm.
complimenting somebody. Hey, listen, I like your shirt. Hey, I like your hair. Like, hey, Vanessa, I like your hair. You know what I mean? That right there, you could save somebody's life. You don't even know it. Like, you could just make that person feel validated, and they'll just be like, oh man, you just made the highlight of their day right there.
Taking a moment to just think about your life experience and not considering the definition of the actual word, but if you could define humanity in your personal life experience, how would you define humanity?
That's a good question. It's just life itself. I know it's just like, and it sounds weird, but it's just humanity. It's just like life, man. You're just living life. We live, breathe, and have all these emotions, but what we do with them is just scary at times. Like, if you look at some of the things throughout history and some of these people that have done horrible things, it's like, that's a human did that. They made their own choices to do that. And I think that's the scary part when it comes to humanity, is the fact that you have the choice to control your own path. Like, you can choose how you navigate through life. Like, you're making a decision, and anybody that's a big gamer, it's like playing an RPG. You're basically picking your own storyline as you go, kind of thing. And it's just, I think it's crazy though, because a lot of times people do other stuff that influence you too, and you have to be careful of those too, because some people start telling you this, and some people tell you that, and then you have a lot of choices to make, and a lot of times you don't have anybody. There's no help guide telling you how to do this thing. You got to kind of navigate through. So sometimes you make decisions that don't make sense, and things like that. And it's I think it's the scary part of it all is, when it comes down to it, it's like, you're making all these life decisions for yourself, but if you're not taught how to do these things, then you're set up to not even succeed, really, honestly.
The people who, I guess, the bad side of humanity that does these atrocious acts
Hmm.
and really bad things that impact millions of people, how does that impact your perception of humanity? Do you feel like, well, we could still turn it around and those people could come back, to being good humans, or once they're bad, they're bad? What are your thoughts on that?
It depends on the situation. I mean, you could take good and bad from anybody's situation. I think it was the best said this morning. Me and a guest on the show, we were talking about it. It's like a yin and yang type thing. You have light and you have dark. Okay, you can take things from both sides of the picture and be okay. Now, can you save some people? You just can't save some people. Like Adolf Hitler had his, wanted genocide. Like, you just can't save somebody who's got that mindset there. There's no way you're guaranteed you can change his mindset because he's already made up his mind. That's what he wants, and things like that. And I think it's hard for some people, depending on, how you look at it, because somebody, something is driving them to do these kind of things. Now, it could have been something that happened to them as a child and pushed them to go that way. And there's a lot of people that deal with those kind of things, like childhood trauma and things like that. They don't come back from that, And so the answer really is, I don't think you can for some people, but others you can, depending on the situation.
Do you feel like a part of our humanity comes from our surroundings
Hmm.
and the people that raise us, the values that are instilled in us? Is that a majority, or do you think it's just a portion of it?
I think it is a good portion of it because I don't think people realize that kids understand a lot more than we realize. I think we need to stop saying that, oh, they don't understand. They understand. I didn't know as much as I did until I interviewed a woman named Sandra Williams. She was specialized in kids, and she was
Mhm.
saying they, as young as 4, they understand exactly what you're doing. They're watching everything you're doing. Now, they may not be able to tell you what's going on, but they can see it, they can feel it, they can tell it. Mom and dad are fighting all the time, so then they're going to think that's what they should do when they get older, and it's. So I think it's a good majority of it is from that, but I mean we can start breaking it now, and the same thing goes with mental health. We can start teaching them now. Hey, this is what those feelings are. This is what you're feeling. This is what anger is. This is what you, and then start teaching them how to regulate their emotions. That way, later on, they're not so quick to react, and you don't have like a lot of them getting upset and just shooting off the handle. At least they can start thinking about it as they go.
Is there something that you wish that you would have learned early on that could have helped you in your path as an adolescent or as an adult, where now you're like, man, I wish I would have knew that. Would have made life so much simpler.
I wish I would have known that when my mom abandoned me when I was 10, it was going to affect me so much. I mean, it was like I didn't realize how much it actually affected me through my life. Like, I had really bad rage problems and things like that, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And I never dealt with it because I didn't think it was an issue. You just, something happened when you're so young. You don't know what's going on. This person that claims to be, your mom that is supposed to love you just abandons you. And it's like you don't realize the after effects of what's going to happen. And the ripple effect that happened afterwards, it caused so many problems for me. And I was always a hothead, always had gone off the handle because I see my dad was always like that too. He was always really hot. So I got that partially from him. But a lot of the driving force was that when I was 10 years old, she just dropped me at his doorstep and just left me there. And I was like, I was left alone for a whole hour just waiting for my dad to show up. And he was at work an hour away and he didn't know what was going on. So she called him and said, yeah, well, I left him at your doorstep. He's your problem to deal with now. And it's like, okay, well, that's awesome. And then as it went on, it was just like I had so much resentment to her and I was so angry all the time. And a lot of it, that's what it drove from is the fact that, she had done this. And every time I got into a certain situation where I feel like somebody's going to try and leave, I get so hyper upset. Like I get so mad. I'm just like, I start getting because they're having flashbacks to it. I may not fully realize that's what it is, but you start getting that sense of feeling like this person's going to leave me, just like my mom did, And it's like you get that sense, like you go back into it, and it triggers you. And I really wish I would have learned, like from an early age, I would have got some help, honestly, because I don't think I would have so many problems I'm having now that I'm starting to deal with already that I've discovered as I start doing therapy and really digging into these things. And, and it affected so much of my life, and it's ruined a lot of relationships with friends and other people because I did all these things. I started self-medicating like everybody else does, you start self-medicating, start doing these horrible things. And, it's just like, now I feel like the path I'm on now is to regain the trust of a lot of people. And it's some people just won't forgive you. I mean, and at that point, you're going to have to either get used to it or just have to accept the fact you may not get acceptance out of it. And you're going to have to figure out how to deal with it on your own. And it's hard. It really is.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I'm sorry to hear that too, by
Yeah.
the way. And can't imagine how difficult that must have been for you.
It was a
And
lot
you
harder
were
than you
10,
realize.
so you
Yeah.
knew what was going on. You had the ability to process a lot of emotions and understand things. You try to, I guess, control the situation as best you can and
Yeah.
try to deal with the trauma in the moment. And sometimes forgetting or trying to, put it away so you don't just like completely lose it. But your mind kind of tries to suppress things to kind of help you along, but then we don't really deal.
Yeah.
So is that kind of what happened for you, or what?
Yeah, I tend to do what they like to say, you bottle up a lot of it. I didn't. It did regulate my emotions. I had a guest on the show named Leroy. He's in Canada, and he put it best. He was like, a lot of problems with a lot of people and kids are is that they bottle up all these emotions, and you don't know if you don't know how to regulate your emotions that you'll just eventually pop like a top. And that's what happens. I don't say nothing. I get so upset, and then just the slightest thing just sends me a snap off, and I'll just start going nuts for no reason. After that, it's just completely seeing red. It's like somebody going through a PTSD moment. You lose complete focus of who you are, and you're so enraged over some stupid thing. It could have been the smallest thing. You could have gave me the wrong look, and I would have just went completely off the handle. It was horrible. And in the moment, it was just like, I'm trying to process, okay, my mom and I were arguing. I don't remember what we even argued about. It was something totally stupid. My mom was very possessive of things. All of a sudden, she wanted me to go to therapy at first and was saying, oh, I'm the one that has coping issues. And really it was her that was having the problem that I didn't want to come back as soon as she dropped me off because I basically just cut off all feelings towards that. I was just like, I'm done. That's it. Done. And she was like, oh no, now he can come back after a few weeks. I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't want to come back. And my dad said the same thing. He's like, no, he doesn't want to come back. He doesn't want to be there. You dropped him off at my doorstep. Now you want to turn around and basically come get him all of a sudden. It's not how it works. She wasn't getting child support for me. And it was horrible because it's like, I'm glad I'm just a dollar sign to you because at that point, now I feel like you're slave trading me or human trafficking me for money because now you just want to use me for money because now you're not getting that money from me because you threw me out basically because you and I had a disagreement. And my mom was very abusive. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I'll be honest right now. Don't tell a lot of people about this, but she was very abusive. I remember there's times where she kicked the living tar out of me and she would stomp on me and things like that. And it get rough. It was bad sometimes, And I was so confused because I'm like, how do you say you love me? Then you do these things to me. And then you're like so very abusive to me. And you're yelling and screaming all the time and, grabbing spoons and other objects, that we all joke about that our parents used to do and things like that. But it's like, you don't realize a lot of stuff traumatizing to you because you get hit with these things. And it's like, to everybody else, it was normal because, yeah, it was normal for my mom or my dad because that's how they were raised. But that shouldn't be how it continues to go. So it's crazy. You know what I'm saying?
With your mom, did you eventually, I guess, work through that?
No.
Or are you still working through it?
I'm still working through it. I'm 39 years old and I'm still working through it. I just this past year started therapy. And it's one of those issues. It's going to be a hard one to deal with because we stopped speaking after I had my first daughter. She was upset. I was 19. I was a kid. I didn't know any better. I was a kid trying to raise a kid. It's hard because I know I'm not going to get anything from her because she's going to say to the end of her deathbed that I never did anything. So now it's more I've got to deal with it on my own somehow. Like I'm writing a letter to myself, writing a letter to my mom of things I want to say. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out and burn it in the fire pit in the backyard. And after that, it'll just be done with. That's my end game right there. Just close it out. But it's so hard when you have to write this letter to somebody and say these things and know that they're not going to hear it. They're not going to read it. They're not going to say anything about it because it's like, I feel like if I were to send it to her, I don't think she'd even care what I had to say because that's my opinion though. And maybe that may not be the case, but that's how I feel. I feel like if I were to write this letter and send it to her, I don't know what she's going to say because I don't think I want to know what she's going to say because if it comes back negative, I don't know what's going to happen next. And I don't think I can handle it. So I think that's the route I'm going with at this point. And me and my therapist discussed, it's just, write the letter, light it on fire, and that's it. That's your end game. As soon as that thing burns up, you're done. That's it. You don't have to worry about it. You're pretty much washing yourself clean of it and just move on. And I know she wants to have a relationship now, And I've talked to my brother about it. I said, man, I don't think you understand, brother. There's just a lot of things I have to deal with personally before
Sure.
I even want to build a relationship at this
Right.
point. So,
So you and I have both interacted with humanity on a pretty great scale. You've interviewed tons of people.
oh,
I've
yeah.
done the same, whether it's podcast or video. And so sometimes you see yourself in other people that you've
Mm-hmm.
never met. And I'm sure that sometimes you see yourself, in the, I guess, mental health stories of other people. Do they sometimes kind of bring up things in you that you either dealt with or maybe you weren't prepared to deal with? And what are they?
It's funny. I had somebody on, though, that very similar things that a lot of people have. They deal with the same kind of trauma, except for one lady was named Mia Hanks. She was an author of the book Bridemaid. She'd come on, and me and I were discussing some things. And funny thing is, Mia lived 20 minutes away from where I was when my situation was going on with my whole narcissistic thing. And that was her book, was about her and her narcissistic husband. And her story and I lined up a lot of the ways in the same way. And it was just really weird because I've never met this person. I have no clue who this person is. Until this interview, I never knew who she was. And this person's telling my life story, basically the same things I dealt with. Like, she dealt with a covert narcissist, which a lot of times they just present themselves as much better than they are. And then in the back scene, they're actually doing more harm than good. And they're always trying to put on present that they're always so great, everything's so happy. Like, so people don't ask questions because they like to keep everything very covert. And Mia's story and I were lining up so hard, it was just like, ooh, I felt that emotion of because she was talking about, how he would, make her think she's going crazy and things like that. And I was like, damn, I'm feeling it because it's like, I stopped her at one point and said, are you reading my mind? Because this is the same thing I dealt with. And it was so crazy because the feelings come back up because it's like you can sympathize with people because you're like, I've been there. I know what that's like. I felt that. It's happened. Several guests, like different things just trigger you to feel like these things. And you're like, man, I could feel that. And then you start sharing stories about yourself and things like that and just start matching up with them. It makes them feel more comfortable though. That's why I like to keep the conversation casual when I interview people, because I feel like you get more out of them versus just straightforward like line of questioning for a lot of them. And a lot of people say the same thing. They said they like that. That's what they liked about the show, is that we keep it casual. I'm like, yeah. And a lot of times when you start hitting certain things, I'll start revealing some things. Even you remember in our interview, I didn't say much about myself and things like that. I don't really talk much about my past a lot because, I just, it's just something I'm dealing with. But now I'm getting a little more comfortable at bringing it up, and I'll start touching into certain things. And it makes the conversation more genuine when you start saying, hey, listen, I've been there. This is the situation I dealt with, similar to what you've dealt with. And it makes people feel comfortable because they're like, well, hey, man, whoa, hey, hold on. This guy's dealt with the same thing I kind of have. Say, I like this. And then they start watching these people start opening up and start sharing things like you would never believe what they're going to say to you next. And it's the great thing about it is that the show is unpredictable. I love it, the fact that it's just unpredictable, the conversations you're going to have, because like when you get people really going, you can see them. They just start sharing all these stories, telling you all these things like, hey, this is how this happened or that happened. And it's great to watch them get. And at the end of the conversation, when I finish recording, I say, so how did you feel? I was, oh my God, it was the greatest thing I ever done in my life. I loved it so much. Thank you so much. It was amazing. And it's like, that's what I tell people. Like they all say they're nervous when they come on. And I'm like, a good host is going to lead you through this thing. I'll be honest with you. My anxiety kicks up in the beginning because you don't know how the conversation is go. But once you get them to break through
Mhm.
that little kind of like nervousness and get them really start flowing, it's game on then, man. You could have a straight up conversation for hours with these people about things like it's two friends just having a conversation.
We often compare ourselves to other people. So hearing stories from other people in similar situations, if it's, worse than you and they're still here, then you compare yourself and say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I may be less than, but they're still here. So I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that gives a lot of assurance. So yeah, definitely hearing stories, it really is soothing. And then telling your story, even though it's in little pieces, it's
Mm-hmm.
still healing every time you do it. And I'm
Yeah.
sure that you reveal little parts of it that you didn't really remember.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely helpful
And
for
it's
you.
credibility too, because it's like, okay, this guy's been through what I've been through. So I'm not just talking to a complete stranger now. Now I know that Pete's been through these kind of things. He understands on a different level than most people do. And it tends to make people feel more comfortable too, because it's like, all right, now I can relate to him. He knows what's going on. He's dealt with the same problems I have. So like, okay, cool. So he'll get this. And a lot of times you'll see us when we're conversating, that's something like, listen, we know exactly how we're feeling here, And it just starts going and real good conversation. We just start bouncing off each other the whole way through the conversation.
Yeah. When you're out in the world, do you watch people and
Mm-hmm.
just observe them?
Mm-hmm.
So, what is a moment of humanity that you've seen in front of you where you witnessed something good, some good piece of humanity in front of you?
It's I see a lot of times I'm watching people, they pay it forward. It's my big thing. Is, like I do something for you, like just a small thing. Doesn't matter what it is. Hey, I bought a cup of coffee for you. Just pay it forward to the next person. And when you watch people start doing those things, it just makes you feel better because it's like that one kind act right there could be the thing that does it. Like I say, that could save someone's life right there. And it's all it is. And I'm always constantly watching what people are doing because I'm just curious. And it's interesting to see how people interact with other people. And it's like, when it comes to people like on the spectrum, there's a young gentleman that works with us now that I was watching him the other day. He was just holding the door for somebody. And this one guy walked up to him just really standoffish for no reason. He was like, well, why are you holding the door for me? I'm just thinking, oh God, this may not go bad. This may go good. Here we go. And he was just like, I'm just trying to be polite. And then it's like people are so afraid of people being so kind to people. Like they think there's a catch-22 involved in everything. And it's just like, it's not. Sometimes just paying it forward, man. You can make somebody's day right there. You never know. That could be the highlight of their moments right there.
Yeah, that kind of says a little bit though about where we are. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, previous it was just like, oh, thank you so much for doing that kind thing. Now it's, well, wait, what a minute.
What do you want in return?
What's the
Yeah.
cat? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you think that says about us? How we've evolved?
I think it's sad. I don't know why we left kindness at the door and decided to just be so rude to people. I think the problem is when you bring politics into things too, they start to really get ugly because everybody has an opinion. I get that, but it's like, I think we're to the point where we're starting to taunt each other a little too much. And I think we need to start remembering that at the end of the day, we're all human. Like we all have emotions, we all feel things, we all don't agree with things. But that just being kind to somebody costs nothing, man. They're not asking you for money, they're not asking for anything else. But that just being kind to somebody costs nothing, man. They're not asking you for money, they're not asking for anything else. Hey, somebody lost somebody. Hey, listen, I'm sorry. If you need something, let me know. If there's something I can do, anything. Just that offering the idea of just kindness to people. It seems to be so far gone. I don't know why it is that we went this route, but I think we need to start making a change to start being nicer to each other, because at the end of the day, we all have problems. We all deal with things, but it costs nothing to be human to someone. I mean, just be very nice to someone, and all you compliment their shirt, whatever you do, it feels great, and you'll notice the positivity will start being contagious. And I think that's what we need to work on, and that's why I tell people though, like I know we had talked about this. I tell people, ask how your mental health is, because a lot of times you'll be amazed what people will tell you after that conversation. You'll start getting them open up, and then they'll be like, okay, and you don't have to ask them their life story. Just showing the fact that you care for somebody, or just like, hey man, are you good? You notice something wrong with them, just asking them they're okay. A lot of times that's what people want, is just to feel like, oh, hey, this nice person heard me, and then they're happy, and then they'll go do it to somebody else. And it's been a chain reaction we've been doing on TikTok. I have a bunch of people that follow me, and they tag me in videos and said, hey, my buddy Pete for his anxiety always asks people, how's your mental health? And it feels great every time I see these videos that they post all the time and things like that, asking people that question. It's like, you don't ask them how your day is, you ask them, hey, how's your mental health? Because one, it initiates a conversation. Two, you don't give them a chance to just give you the one word answer. And then you may meet somebody new, you may need a new friend right there, and somebody you never knew you had anything in common with, just complete strangers. And it's just crazy. I think that we need to stop being so angry at each other. Whatever color you are, doesn't matter. I don't care. Purple, green, yellow, black, it doesn't matter. What does it matter? We could put all these things in there for no reason. It's just like, let's cut the nonsense, man. At the end of the day, we're all human. The one thing that keeps us all the same. And I think that if we can all start being kinder to each other, one act at a time, I think the world will be a better place. I know we have all these different wars and these people that get mad, but it's just like, I get that, but we got to live above these things, guys. We can't continue to feed the hate, because it's going to get us nowhere at the end of the day.
You're the first person that I've not had to ask, what's your message to humanity? You just gave it. So well done, you. If we could do these things, everything that you said, what would humanity look like?
I think it'd be a better place. I think people would start to trust each other a little more. In case someone needs a little help,
Mm.
hey, these people don't have food. Donate some food to, you know what I mean? Just simple kind of acts that could make somebody else's life better. And then at the end of the day, all you're doing is helping. You're not doing much. You're not having to put, much effort. It's just called being nice. Like, just be nice to people. I don't understand what the problem is, why we just can't do it. And I think if we do it, I think people will find that it's a better place to live in, because everybody be more positive towards each other. We wouldn't have so much, hate towards each other, so much resentment and things like this that go on. I think it's possible, but it's going to take a change from more than one person, and then you got to unite. And the more united we are, the more it's going to cause a change, and it's going to spread, and it's going to be a positive spread. We want to make sure everything's positivity, because, I may not know you people. I don't know these guys I interview and everything like that. But if you treat everybody with kindness, you'll find that you get a lot farther in life versus being rude to everybody.
And putting positivity into the world and putting people's stories out, talking about mental health so openly and letting them express themselves. I think that makes ripples, really impactful ripples in the universe, and all for the better.
Definitely.
Is there anything that you want to share that's just like burning inside of you that we haven't gone over? Anything that you want to share with people?
I think, I'm going to be honest with y'all right now, I think that the fact when people say mental health is talked about enough, it's complete horse crap. And I hear me out if everybody gets mad at me. What irritates me are these clickbait videos that people make. It's like, okay, so what happens after the conversation? Like, okay, it's great, suicide awareness stuff, bringing awareness to this, but are we talking about it afterwards? No. Well, that's the problem I think we're having. And that's the first problem that we're having, is that we need to continue to have this conversation. And it's like everybody says we're talking about it, but we're not. Clearly not. The demand of this show that I have, the people that want to be on here, clearly we're not. We're not having a conversation enough. We're not having it loud enough, And I think we all need to start uniting together and work together as a group versus against each other to try and unite to start educating people about these things. So we stop becoming negative statistics and we start becoming positive statistics, and that's what we have to do, and I think it starts from the top. But, it doesn't mean we can't start from the bottom. Us just little people out there, one of us to meet another person that has the same interest, and just continue to share the positivity amongst yourselves and bring up the conversation of like, hey, how's your mental health today? And talk more about these things like it's normal. Like if you need help or you feel like someone needs help, they can reach out to me personally. I'll answer you. I'm on TikTok all the way down to X, all these different things. So reach out to me anyway. I'll talk to you. Definitely. And I have a Discord I'm working on to set up like, where people can get together and keep positivity that, hey, like you're having a rough day, you can pop in and say, hey, I'm having a rough day. And then just everybody just come together and boost you up and things like that, and see what we can do that make your day a little better, hear you out, and stuff like that.
Our company does volunteer service, and you get paid to go volunteer with your teams and such. And so we spent half the day packing food for other countries. Yeah. It was like kind of like MRE style, but you like pour the ingredients and then they seal it and they box it up and send it to other countries. And so we spent half the day doing that. And that was like the best feeling in the world, to just stop everything, stop all of life and just do something that was completely, selfless. And you were just there to help other people for that period of time.
Yeah.
People. And I think that
you said the key word in that sentence, people. You didn't say what country they were from. You didn't care what race they were. You said people.
Right. People.
That's the main thing people understand is we're being kind to other people. That's it right there.
Yes. And just being able to have that space to do that was amazing. But it makes me think how we do what we do. I promote, humanity and the discussion about humanity and how we could restore it or what we need to do to bring that back or where we are. And then you have those conversations on mental health and you give people the space to talk about it and to breathe and to feel their feelings and feel valid for them. And so it's like we all do these really meaningful things and meaningful activities in effort to serve humanity and to help other people. And definitely. I think if not for this work, like, I don't know, the world would definitely not be a good place, but I'm so glad that you're in it. And I'm so glad that you do what you do. You're always at it. You're always working so hard, but your work is so meaningful.
Yeah, it is. It's rewarding
and you
too.
are so strong. So just know that on your worst day, you're still an awesome human.
Yeah.
Tell everyone where they can find your stuff and all that good
guys.
stuff.
Let's run down the list. We can go find me from TikTok all the way down to X. I'm live Mondays on the Oracle Talk Radio Network. I do a live show at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Now, if you follow my YouTube channel, I am going live more during the week because I'm trying to get more episodes out there and things. I'm on Spotify down to iHeartRadio, so it means Apple, Amazon, everything else. So everything audio will end up over there too eventually, and things like that. But if you want to be on the show, reach out. Vanessa, reach out to me, reach out to Vanessa. Let somebody know. Just reach out to me. PeteForSociety@gmail.com is my email. You just send me a link. Let me know that you're interested. Give me a little rundown about yourself. And I know I sound like I'm busy all the time, but I always make time to put people in there. I always feel like everybody has a story that needs to be heard. If you want your story heard, you can come on the show. If you want it to be a private conversation, not be a live conversation, we could also do that too. I'm very accommodating when it comes to these kind of things, and things like that. And guys, just remember to be kind to everybody. It just doesn't cost anything at all. Just be nice to somebody. And remember, don't ask how your day is. Ask how your mental health is today.
I love it. How is your mental health today?
I'm doing great today, actually. I had a great conversation with a young woman named Catherine earlier. And she's a fellow podcast host too. And we were talking about it, and I was telling her, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this podcast. I was telling her about this. I was telling her about doing this. I was like so excited. Like I've been talking about this all week. I was so excited when Vanessa and I discussed about coming on her doing this. I was like, yeah, this is going to be fun. It was the highlight of my week.
That's a lot of pressure the whole week, to like live up to that greatness. I was
okay. I took on the task. I had this covered. Don't worry. I've been prepping. I was so excited, guys. You don't even know. This is so great. Thank you so much for having me. I was so excited. I'm telling you, as soon as you reached out again, and you're like, hey, I'm ready to go. I literally jumped out the chair. I was like, oh, hell yeah, let's go. I was up doing cartwheels and dances and things. And people were just like, well, you can't do it. Oh, dude, yeah. I just got the opportunity to be on this show. And I talk about you all the time. I tell people, like, I was telling them about how we first met, and the project you were associated with, how you were just asking people, hey, are you happy? And, how powerful that was. And I said, she was the coolest person in the world, And I said, I'm going to be on this podcast, Manny 2.0. And she decided to splinter off, do it on her own. And I was like, I've been bragging about it all week to people. They're like, oh yeah, it's called, yeah. I'm like, yeah. So
I think we're going to be lifelong friends. Definitely. It is what it is.
Exactly. You're stuck with me now. Sorry. That's what I tell people. You're stuck with me.
Oh, hey. Same. Well, Pete, thanks again for being on our show.
Thank you so much.
For everyone else, we'll see you next week on Humanity 2.0 podcast. Don't forget to be good humans. See you later, Pete. Thanks so much.
See you guys. Bye. Thank you so much.